Well, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to circle back with the board and update you on our Crisis Alert implementation. As a quick reminder, it was just last June that Brent Kiger and myself were up here talking to you about this new product that we felt would really enhance our safety protocols, and in July the board approved us moving that direction, and we had a very rapid install in July and August and started the school year up and running with Crisis Alert. So tonight we're going to do a refresher on the actual Crisis Alert product and what it does for us, and then we'll talk a little bit about our first semester data and usage as well. So I'm going to let Brent take it from here.
All right, good evening, board and Dr. Yeager. Thanks for giving us this opportunity. Like Dr. McMullen said, we had the opportunity over the summer to bring this product to you after a search of all the vendors and products out there. We felt like this was the one that really would set our district apart and really make us one of the safest districts in the area. I'll do a quick reminder of what the product is. So CENTEGIX is the company, Crisis Alert is the product. You'll see staff members wearing it behind their badge, just like this. All of our staff members are issued their own badge. The idea being it's a wearable product. So it's not a cell phone app. There's not what you might call a panic button on the wall. It's a badge that's kept on our person. What it does is it gives every staff member the ability to quickly summon help in the event that we need it. So we have beacons installed all over our district, inside and outside. You'll see a couple in this room, and it's Bluetooth technology. So what it does is it allows anyone to press that button 3 times, and it sends a signal to that beacon. Which then sends that signal to the site responders at that building, so that building safety team. So for example, at a high school, it's going to be all the admin team, so the 5 principals, school resource officer, the safety specialist, the nurse. So the right folks are going to get the message immediately. What it can also do, in addition of just needing help in an urgent situation, has the ability to put any building on a lockdown. So in the event there's a critical situation such as an active shooter, by continually pressing that button on the 8th press, all the beacons that you see throughout the building flash red, message takes over any computer screen that's connected to the district Wi-Fi. It states we're in a lockdown, and there's also an audible message that gets played over the intercom. What that does is it quickly announces to the entire building that there's a critical incident and we need to get behind a locked door right away. So some of the issues that might come up for what we call the staff alert or the three button press would be a behavior matter, it could be a fight or disturbance, or a medical issue, whether it's at an athletic field or in the classroom. Talked about the lockdown a little bit. So again, our implementation, Dr. McMullen mentioned it a little bit. We brought it to you guys end of June. I'll steal a phrase from Dr. McMullen that we rolled this out in warp speed, which is exactly what it felt like. But it was good. We got up and running by the first day of school, and every USD 233 employee has their badge, as does every substitute teacher. They have their own badge. We currently have over 5,500 beacons placed all throughout our district. So that's, again, that works inside. It also works outside. So you might see them on parking lots, on recess playgrounds. If it's on our property, then this product covers it, which is one of the features I really like. Some of the things that we've used it for, they vary a little bit, and we'll talk later in the presentation about elementary versus secondary. But some of the more common reasons that our staff have used it for are there on your screen. So elopements, largely at the elementary level there. So when one of our students is having an issue and leaves the classroom, or unfortunately sometimes briefly leaves the building, that's a great time to use this product, because again, what it does is it notifies the building administration and the safety team that there's an issue and specifically where they're at, so it helps get resources there quickly. Of course, medical emergencies, anything that could happen on the playground, student behavior, student disturbances, all those sorts of things are just a few examples of some of the reasons our staff have been using the product. With that, I'm going to turn back over to Dr. McMullen to talk about some of the specific data.
Okay, so we're pleased tonight to share with you our first semester data, and as you can see, we had almost 3,400 uses of our staff alert. At the elementary level, 3,261, 75 at the middle school, and 60 at the high school. I will say, that that elementary number is certainly higher than we anticipated, frankly. A couple things to kind of frame that. One, in talking and working with CENTEGIX, nationally, that matches their trends across districts across the country, that it's used more at the elementary level than the secondary level. Of course, we have 36 elementary schools. And so really when you break it down by 36 elementary schools over an 18-week semester, it really comes out to about 5 per week per school. So now granted, we had some schools that used it much more than others, et cetera. And then we had some other instances where maybe there might be one specific incident where the button was pushed 4 or 5 times. It could be as an elopement was taking place and the staff member kept hitting it to update their location or what have you. So we had great usage first semester. The breakdown, you'll see about 79% were labeled as behavior, 17% elopement, 3% on the medical side. Fighting was just under 1% and suspicious activity under 1%. A couple things to highlight on that slide. One, on the medical, that 3% comes out to about 78 instances. And what really is refreshing to us is that a year ago this time, the response time to those 78 instances would not have been as rapid as it was this year because of this program of Crisis Alert that we implemented. So pretty excited about that. Benefits, as we've talked about, the empowerment of staff to summon help with the touch of a button. And that's not only the 3-button push that I need assistance due to a medical issue or a student issue or a stranger, but it also empowers every staff member to put the building on a lockdown. And so whether you are a principal, a teacher, a custodian, a secretary, a food service worker, if you see something super dangerous that would dictate us going into a lockdown, you have the authority to do that. And that's that much quicker we get locked down and get everyone safe. Obviously, we get our campus responders quickly to the exact location. The location services on this product have been just tremendous. Every time we get an alert, shows us, the map pulls up on our cell phones, shows us exactly the building, the staff member, and exactly where they are in that building.
Thank you for that. Questions from the board?
I've got a question, a couple if I could. You expressed in your surprise around the number of elementary. In reverse, are you surprised, or is CENTEGIX surprised at what looked like a relatively low number given the sheer volume of middle school and high school students, right? 60 and 75, I don't have it in front of me, but it's about like that for each of those levels, given that each one of those represents about a third of the students in the district. So is that low? Is that surprising? Is that statistically relative to other markets like ours?
Yeah, it's interesting. In talking with CENTEGIX, it's pretty standard across the country. And it was a surprise to us, frankly. We thought it would be higher at that level. I think there's a few things that factor into that. One, I think as kids get into middle school and high school, they know the routines of school, they know the code of student conduct, they know the expectations. And so I think there's that piece. I think there's also, at the elementary level, with just one administrator, one counselor, there's just not the support staff in place, like you have at a 6A high school with the volume of staff. You got to think at a high school, you have staff that are maybe on a supervisory, each hour throughout the building, helping monitor things, et cetera. And so, and the other piece is that elementary kids are learning school, and the staff is learning about the kids and their needs. And so sometimes it takes that model of discovery to figure out what supports we need to have in place for our kids. So, I'll be really curious to see our second semester data because, again, as we talked about, implementation at warp speed for all the right reasons, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. But I think, some of our buildings certainly at the elementary level have had some pretty high use, but the data piece is critical for them because it allowed them to reconvene as a staff, talk about some norms, set some expectations on that, and so I'll be really curious to see our data at the end of next semester as well.
You hit on something that I'd like to follow up because when we had spoken before, you said there was some coaching that comes with some of this as well, right? You had expressed some concerns that were, how come some of these folks aren't ringing their button at all?
Yeah.
And you had shared that some of those folks were a little concerned that it might reflect on their ability to contain the class, but maybe they were trying too hard to control instead of asking for help. Can you talk a little bit about the ongoing coaching during this fall and now going into the spring of, it's okay to hit that button, or, these are the situations. Can you talk a little bit about the coaching that you all have learned to give these teachers to free them up to use it more? And then, but also maybe someone who was an all the time? Maybe?
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
you shared some of that with some of us in prior conversations.
It's a great
Would you be
question
willing-
because, we certainly had some buildings that had a pretty high use and then others where it was pretty minimal. And so it allows you to, that's the beauty of the data, is it allows you to have conversations on both ends of, hey, we might be running just lots of alerts in this building, so let's figure out the why. And then let's talk about with that staff, what maybe norming what is a crisis versus what is a classroom management issue. But the one thing we have continually stressed throughout this process is we're never going to tell a staff member don't push the button. They'll never hear that from me. They'll never hear it from Brent Kiger. So anytime a staff member feels they need assistance, they can hit it. But again, we also want to, not have some of our principals have to wear running shoes every day to do nothing but run the classroom. So that's where that collaboration between the school administration and the staff in working together to kind of set some norms and some, situations that would be consistent for everyone to do that the same. And then on the other end, with buildings that haven't used it as much, having those conversations of, hey, here's the incident that happened last week. That would have been a good time to utilize crisis alert, and we didn't. So then there's that teaching or coachable moment as well. So yeah, it definitely works on both ends of the spectrum, but our staff have been extremely receptive, and frankly, our feedback's just been off the charts from our staff about just them feeling empowered and secure and safe in their work environment.
And you repeatedly mentioned, let me finish up real quick, is the data that Dr. Yeager shared that you all are sharing with the leadership teams, and then the trickle down to the leaders of each of the schools in sharing, cross-pollinating with the PBIS programs, right? That was one of the things that Dr. Yeager had shared with us is this isn't in a silo by itself. It's an evolving element in which we use that data. I think Dr. Veach was talking a lot with her teams about how to read the data, and this is a point of data. Where do we have the PBIS help? Where do we have the behavioral help? Who's rolled those out? And I think it'd be really unique in about a year to be able to cross-pollinate a presentation that says, how has this changed and how the schools changed as they fully embraced PBIS and fully embraced the alternative positive reinforcement structures, and if it has, how, right? I mean, that'd be something I'd like plant a seed that come this time of year from now, that you have a cross conversation of how is this working behaviorally with the other MTSS type things and PBIS type things. So just putting a pin in a plan, because I think my assumption is that's going to be a good thing, right? That they both help each other, right?
My comment was going to be kind of similar to that. One of the things that's pretty powerful that's happened is, as Dr. McMullen and Mr. Kiger have looked at the data and they see a school that's an outlier one way or the other, they can easily go to the level assistant superintendent and say, gosh, this school seems to be an outlier in the number of buttons that are pushing. And then, it really provides the opportunity for us to either go in and support and coach, or at times align district resources to help support whatever's happening in that school. It's a good piece of data for that because, many times schools rightly are trying to, take care of things themselves and working really hard to get that done. But this also has just been another triangulation of data where we can say, gosh, this school looks like they're a little different than the others for one reason or the other. And so we can either provide coaching or we can even realign district resources in terms of some of our coaching and things like that to support schools with some of those things. So.
I had one last question on the Raptor. I think your number was about 27,000. Has Raptor been around long enough to be able to say that's an increase from a fall? Because I know in the last year, Dr. Yeager has really, really pushed, and it's an MBO or a management element for every principal, as Mr. Herman said, to bring the community into the schools, to bring more parents in, more volunteers in. I met two brand new first-time volunteers at Santa Fe yesterday when I was over there. Is that 27,000 an increase? Is that the norm? Is that good? Is that,
That would be
I don't
tough.
I don't know if that number, what that represents.
It's a great question. It's a little bit difficult because we rolled it out
Pandemic.
to all of our buildings February of 2020.
Oh, when no one was there.
So
Yeah,
it's a
okay.
little hard. I
Okay.
think with a little bit more time, we'll have a more concrete answer. Just with COVID, it's difficult.
Because it sounded like a really good number. When we spoke the other day, you're really excited that the community engagement, the involvement showing up in the schools seemed to really be resonating, and the principals seemed to be enjoying it. So I thought that was a huge number.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that when you put that number into perspective, we have about 90 school days in first semester and 27,000 visitors. So talk about getting our community back in our schools. I think that's pretty evident there.
There's another data point, so I'm glad to see it. So sorry. That's it for me.
Thank you. Others? Go ahead, Leah.
Do we see many false alarms like, oops, I didn't mean to push that? Or
We've gotten a few, but not near as many as I thought we would, quite frankly. So no, so far it's gone very well.
you'd have to fall into that button at least 3 times.
You really
know?
have to be strategic to do it. Yeah,
I just had a
absolutely.
moment of panic. Yeah. So when a sub comes in and they are issued a card, I'm understanding our use policy, like for behaviors and emergencies, is unified throughout the district. Is that right? It's not like local control at the building level?
No, that's correct. Yeah, and initially our intent was to maybe check out 10 badges to high schools, 5 to middle schools, 5 to elementaries, and have them check out to the subs each day. And in talking with our leadership team and with human resources, we realize we have so many subs that are so loyal to our district, and they come every day and help us out. And so we made the choice to make that part of our onboarding training now with new subs, and then obviously trained our existing returning subs. And so they have their own badge. They keep it 24/7, and obviously it works on any campus in the district. And yes, to answer your question, the norming of discipline, and again, as I said earlier, we'll never question someone for hitting the button. If you think there's a situation that you need assistance with, you hit it.
Good. On KMBZ in the talk radio realm, they were talking about Olathe Public Schools and the badges, because another district here locally rolled out a similar, I don't know if it's the same brand or not, badge alert system. And it was interesting to hear the comments, without a professional from here representing us. So sometimes you're yelling at the radio, no, that's not right,
Right, yeah.
So I was proud to be the lead in this, because I think it's an important initiative. So thank you both very much.
I was actually going to add that just briefly, that I also heard that, and one of our teachers named Jeff, I don't know where you are tonight, but called in on the radio show and really did a nice job. He really did of explaining it and just our different process and things. And it was neat to hear somebody that I'm not sure who he is, but he did a great job of explaining it. I really would like also to thank Brent and Jim and the board for the foresight to get this done. I mean, it's not oftentimes we toot our own horn for being pretty revolutionary at something, but we are the first district in the Midwest that's done this. And I will be surprised if other districts in our area, like almost all of them, don't have this within the next year, that kind of thing. And that really is, I think, reinforcing in many ways of the choice that this board made in terms of supporting that, but also the research that especially Brent did. And the warp speed implementation is absolutely true. Brad Caldwell's not in the room. He's out in the lobby probably, but just a very small team did a pretty incredible lift to get this done for our system, and it's gone extremely well. So kudos to lots of people for this.
It's excellent.
Really quick comment. We talked a lot tonight about the unintended benefits that we've gotten from this, and that's wonderful. How often in education do we get a talk on January 12th about last semester data? So that's pretty exciting too. Very
Absolutely.
real-time information.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Nice point. Others?
Wait, make one more comment. So, when we have a limited pot of money, and then you as security specialists look at it, and we've got parents wanting to have metal detectors, for example, making the cultural decision, first of all, we don't even have to talk about the efficacy of those, but, a badge around every teacher, to me, is such a wise investment compared to, locking down and having everybody have to go through, like, TSA screening. And so I want to thank you for that as well, because you've allowed us to maintain our neighborhood school culture while making us safer. And so I would be remiss if I didn't point that out, because, you know, we've had those conversations over as long as I've been here. And, you know, as a mom, you know, when you start hearing about bulletproof vests, you know, or backpacks that, you know, some families have invested in, because, you know, it is scary in this culture to, you never know, you know, what's going
Right.
to happen. This to me is just a brilliant investment. So we're doing the right things. I feel very comfortable saying to any parent that, you know, safety is a priority, and we prove it with stuff like this. So thank you both very much.
Well,
Thank you,
and
Brent.
a quick return thank you to the board. This board has always invested in safety in this district. As Brent and I have been to a conference earlier this year and hearing districts that are just now getting access control management, you know, on their exterior doors, you know, something our board did in 2016 in that bond, you know. And so I feel like our board and this district has always been on the forefront, and I'm very thankful for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Others? All right. Appreciate you guys.